us to kind of understand the diversity of who we are. Matt had asked me to kind of go over my story. I'm in my 50s, and my transition as far as the research and study didn't start until 2013. It's all based on, I work, primarily in the shipbuilding industry, and, the biggest fear with transgender folks is, of course, they have to have a livelihood. So you have to work within those bounds, and unfortunately, there's a lot of oppression in that. And that's what kind of keeps, we're talking employment, families, friends, their cultural environment are big barriers. That's pretty much your whole life that prohibits a lot of folks that are transgender from transitioning. And then sometimes, it's also finances, insurance, which is changing, but you have to understand there's multiple variables that keep folks from being able to be their true, authentic self. In 2013, it was kind of an awakening when more education was coming in as far as being transgender. Growing up, I'd always been, obviously a masculine, and I know that y'all already know, and I can break this down in simple terms of the way I kind of reiterate it and educate those that are, kind of not in your field. But you have 4 different disciplines of a human being. And that's your gender identity, your birthday suit, which is your sex, your orientation, which is whom you're attracted to, and then you have your expression, your demeanor, how you dress, etc. So I know y'all know the basics of that, but that's where transgender comes in. I mean, this starts at birth, and we have to be crystal clear about that, because immediately the signs are visible as early as 3 to 5 years old, with how the child would act and behave, etc. I was always a tomboy. Went fishing with my dad, things like that. Went with the environment that I was in, which was Southern Baptist in small town Hattiesburg, and then moved here when I was older teens. So it's kind of like there was no education back there, very clearly. But the great doors have opened to where I'm in the right place with the right people, with the right company, to where in 2013, I just kind of took a drive by myself to Tennessee, got on the highest mountain, had a conversation with God. What's next? I was already doing advocacy for the community since 2006. So I knew there was more. And I'm a person of faith, and I kind of, let the Almighty lay the path, and I just walk it. So I had to do my own homework, and I encourage you to encourage whomever you cross paths with that's struggling with this. They're 50% of the part of the equation of doing the homework. It's just like going to a regular doctor. If you don't go in there with at least some kind of knowledge of what you're dealing with to be able to express that, then it makes it more difficult for professionals to help you. So I greatly encourage you to, make that connection and encourage that. And I always say that to whomever I come across. You've got to do your own homework to know, the path that you want to take with the environments you're in. So in 2014, which it was understood and defined, and I was at peace with it, and I knew I was in the right place because now I work for a global company that covers transgender health issues. Bingo. Like I said, very blessed, and we're hoping that more companies will continue to do this. I know that there is some transgender health in Obamacare, but it's not inclusive yet really to Alabama, which is primarily Blue Cross Blue Shield. Are we going to get there? Absolutely. I'm a person who, first and foremost is a believer that anything's possible. I've been saying it, and I'll drill it to the end. I can find the tiniest hole with the light in it in a completely dark room. That's how I believe. So started with counseling with, I guess it's okay to say this, with Alta Point, and sat down and had a conversation and said, look, this is what's going on. I've done my homework. I'm beating myself up with this gender dysphoria thing for the last was 50 then, or fixing to be 50. And I said, it's time for change. It's time for me to be the real me, you know, and fully be a better person, you know, a better friend, a better child, you know, and the real authentic self, you know, start to evolve and come out. I can be a better advocate also for my community because I'm living what is my truth. So we went, because I think because I'm older, and you know, you have to be careful too with the younger generation because this is a big deal. You don't want to rush them. You want to make sure they're prepared, you know, psychologically, physically, with the support group, which is huge, because once you start, you shouldn't stop. And I've heard cases of people that are questioning and they go and have this surgery and they have regrets. Let's not, you know, let's decrease those errors. You know, make sure that they are fully 100% educated and ready and know what they want and who they are. That's critical. So Alabama requires that you have a letter from your, you know, counselor, etc., that basically says, this is who I am, I'm dealing with gender dysphoria, and I want to change with hormone replacement therapy. So I started that in May of 2014. And that's when I came out to, I'd already told my family that's here, and then I came out to my community. It was important to me because there were so many people asking questions that I opened that door and say, look, here am I. Let me help educate you by using my story. So that's, you know, what we did. And, you know, I took videos kind of along the way to a certain point. And, you know, I've been so busy with, you know, marriage equality and all these other things that I haven't had a chance to do a video update yet. But, you know, things are good and positive. The hormone therapy was kind of rigorous because, you know, just as one evolves, you know, in life without dealing with being transgender, you're always going to change. So take that to another level to where it's kind of like, you know, you're on literally steroids because your mind and your body are trying to evolve at the same time and keep up with each other. It's critical to have, you know, support group of, you know, psychologists, psychiatry, medical doctors, all these things, continuous research, support, because you're going to go through a lot. I had problems with sleeping, and I was resistant to medication because I just have never been that kind of person. And Dr. Dotson, who was a 30-year resident at that time, kept saying, look, these things will help you. Because the three main things I was dealing with, well, four, was, you know, lack of sleep, sex drive was off the chain, which interferes with focus, and here comes ADD, and that was never really, you know, present to me before. And then, see, ADD.
Something shining.
I know a lot of this. What was the other thing?
Depression.
Depression. There you go. That's probable. I mean, these things are very probable because you're asking your body to physically change. It's all connected. What's affecting your mind affects your body. What changes are going on in your body affect your mind. This is logical, right? So, you know, I knew what was going to happen because I'd done my research. You know, the first 3 months, this is going to happen. The 3rd to 6th month, this is what's going to happen. I had HR do training with my engineering department so that they understand this is who I identify as, because my old name was Robin. I need you to respectfully call me Lane, because this is where I'm transitioning to. That they understood it was going to take years before they saw just, okay, this is just a regular guy, regular dude. And that they be respectful of that. And they've been great about it. They've had their own questions, and I've been open to that because I'm trying to take, and you guys are going to play a key role in it, you're trying to take the question marks away to, erase the uncomfortable thing and just accept people for who they are and the diversity of who they've been created to be. No one person is the same. I consistently say that. If you're expecting that, then you're trying to put people in a box. And there's no way to do that. We weren't created the same. So I made the decision because so much was happening. I got my sleep under control. Things were getting more balanced as far as the testosterone. I could feel my muscle mass changing, that I decided to go ahead and reach out to the surgeon that I'd chosen, which was in Houston. We presently, as far as my knowledge goes and the connections that I have, don't have a qualified surgeon here locally. I understand the difference, and I can only speak to my own story, but you can revert it, as far as female. This is different. I went and had double mastectomy surgery with nipple skin graft relocation. Make sense? Understand, my body is already evolving to male. Muscle structure, everything. That is not the same as a woman, female, probable breast cancer, who goes and has the same thing. They're not going to be surgically structured the same. Make sense? If you look at a guy's chest, you look at a female chest, they are different. You need somebody qualified that understands you are transgender, and you need somebody that understands how to restructure, because I've seen way, way, way too many botched surgeries. And this whole time that you're going through this, because it's a major surgery, you got to keep this in mind, because it affects everything. And you got to make sure that they put me on an antidepressant, and at first I was taking 50 milligrams, and then I've upped it to 100 since the surgery. And it seems to be working consistently well. But there again, a question was asked. I know when I did another lecture with Matt, the question was asked, how long do you think you're going to have to take this medication? We don't have any full-fledged data to say, okay, this is the way it is, we got all this data. It's just not there. And, we clearly are intelligent enough to know it depends on the individual, what their needs are. But the main thing is, we be consistent in making sure that people understand that help is there. A lot of people don't know that when you go to a counselor, a psychologist, psychiatric, most of your insurance is going to pay 100%. Your employer wants you well and happy and stable. So I always encourage that if you're going through something, just go talk to somebody who's a neutral party. Don't be afraid of doing this, because a lot of people do it and they need the help. Because you're not getting the help you need by talking to somebody who's just a family or friend and not qualified to understand how to remedy the problem. So I always encourage that too. But had the surgery, did a good job. I was pleased. I worked from home and they allowed me to. It was great. Drove myself to Houston, like the beginning of December. Drove myself back, and unfortunately, because I'm a big boy and the tubes were in a little bit longer, I became septic with staph infection. Was in the hospital for a month, and here we go with more problems to overcome, along with taking all this medication on top of more medication to get this stuff out of my system. So, kind of overcame that, but I've noticed that, and I talked to my counselor the other day. We had an interview, my wife went with me. I said, I've noticed that in this, yes, I need 100 milligrams still of the antidepressant, but sometimes when I overdo it, I get the shakes, and it's kind of today because I apologize for being tired, but I have deadlines, and my wife and I are going on vacation, and that's important because I'm going to turn my phone off. But I had to stay up all night last night to get some deadlines done for work this morning. But like I said, when I kind of overdo it, I've noticed that if I don't eat like every 2 hours, especially when I'm taking medication, which is twice a day, sometimes at lunch. It just depends on what's going on to keep, my body in line and keep me progressively going healthy. I recently switched endocrinologist because I wasn't happy with the previous one because I wasn't getting tested like I felt like I should. Because this is dangerous if my levels are, doing this, and it affects here too. So found a better one that a friend had recommended, and she's, just so you know, I did not have bottom surgery, and my understanding is that a lot of transgender people do not because it's very invasive. And bottom line, one's private areas between them and whom they choose to be with, biblically, okay? Anyway, we got on a good path with everything as far as, I realized that I needed to decrease stress at work. I needed to, keep things balanced with my family and a good relationship there. My parents are accepting, but my siblings have not yet come about. So, this is giving you a lot of information of what someone's going to deal with. And, when they come to you and they start talking about being transgender, I can guarantee they've come from a place of rejection, hurt, pain, job loss, probable, very probable, and more specifically in the area of transgender females. I kind of say that transgender males, we kind of have a gray area. There's that tomboyish area. And this is where people get confused, and it's frustrating to me to watch the pain I see some people go through as far as being transgender female, trying to live their life. Some are married, some are not. But, they try and start the transition and hope that it's accepting where they are, and they're taking a huge risk, huge. So imagine that kind of stress every single day, that you've got the family in the background that you're wanting that support from and you're not getting it. That you're in a work environment that you have no idea if they're going to be accepting. That you're simply trying to put, as a female, on, grow your hair longer, put on some makeup, feel good about yourself, and the authentic self of being in your skin. Anything's probable to me. It's solvable. And the more education that we do, the more up and coming people that understand this issue and problem and do the work, then the better it's going to be. You just got to be open-minded to accepting what is, but just understand whomever you're talking to, they're walking a different path. It might be defined as the same issue in your codes, but their life is completely different. They're uniquely, individually different, no matter who they are. And I was very much appreciating listening to what was being said earlier with the key points that y'all were making about don't assume and, be mindful to listen, but also encourage to, let the person kind of guide the path. And it's up to them how long it's going to take before you, as psychologists, whatever, feel comfortable maybe giving them a letter to let them start hormone therapy. But you've got to listen, and you've got to understand the pain that they're going through and the dysphoria that they're going through. And I think the more that your mindset open that, there's all kinds of stuff that you can watch on YouTube of transgender individuals that are going through the struggle, and they're telling their story, which is great because it helps anybody to understand. My endocrinologist, I'm thankful that I found her because now she's got me to where I take testosterone once a week, not every 2 weeks, because it just seemed like, it's kind of not really aligned. So it's a better path, and my wife and I are thankful for that. Because there are, medically we know there's long-term effects, if you take too much testosterone. And I'm sure the same thing with estrogen because it affects your organs. So you have to keep track of that. Understand taking testosterone for somebody who's transgender male is lifelong, vice versa with females. And I say, these medications that help keep you balanced is going to be lifelong. With the same understanding as just a regular individual, your body's going to consistently change. It's just this is a different factor of progress. Transitioning, we say takes many years, but your body's going to continue to evolve and change, by age. So just kind of be mindful of that, do like Dr. Dotson did and keep kind of pushing and say, hey, these are going to remedy your issues. I'm thankful for Dr. Brooks, and Dr. Dotson, and now, I'm working with Dr. Hamilton, and we're going to, keep the steady course going. And, I'd love to continue to help the university with bringing in other folks. We do have a support group, it's called Southern Transgender Alliance. I would love to see not just that we come here, but you guys, make a 30-minute effort with somebody coming and talking to them, because they need all the encouragement that they can get. And they need, Wave of Hope's primary goal is resources. We're not the professionals, we're the ones that go knocking on the door and have conversations with students, our professors, and physicians to say, hey, help us. And physicians, I've been, very thankful, have been very open to say, look, you educate us and we'll educate you. It's a working relationship to evolve in this subject matter. So I want to open it up for questions because I can talk forever.
Did you come across any people who seemed, I kind of knew. I mean, did you come across any people that weren't surprised?
The people that were closest to me that saw an internal struggle, and here's the thing about education. If I didn't have the education to define what that internal struggle was, how was I going to explain it to anybody else? Mm-hmm. So when I went and really went to the seminars and went to the lectures about transgender, did the homework online and started researching, and I kept saying, it's me, it's me, it's me. My closest friends were not surprised because once I got to that point, kind of really going through the battles of getting the hormone therapy and the surgery over and being in a better place, they immediately saw a level of peace come about because I wasn't fighting that dysphoria anymore. My coworkers noticed it. My family did, my parents, and I've been very public about my story. You can Google my name. I did a Lanyard article right when I came out because it's important to my community abroad that we educate people. And, like I said, there was a path laid for me, and I've just chosen to walk it. And it's been successful so far, and it's changed a lot of lives and hearts and minds. I went to my dentist one time, and I'm sitting there going, I am fixing this to have facial hair the next time I come here. I gotta tell them. So this little lady, she's tiny, but they're great. And I go in there, and there's Christian contemporary music playing. I'm like, all right, Lord, it's all yours, okay? But the whole time she's like working on me and cleaning my teeth, I'm like, gotta tell them. She said she had asked early when I sat in the chair, hey, what's going on? I said, well, I got this and this and this going on. And when she finished, she says, you don't have just those things going on. You're doing a lot of good for a lot of people because I read your article in Lanyard. Being the big burly man, I held back tears. And, but when I got home, I cried in my community going, that's just, that was confirmation that where I am is where I'm supposed to be. And doing what I need to do to help them. So it all worked out, and they've been amazing ever since. So any doctor I go to that there's empowerment, and them saying, look, totally want to work with you, share this information, help people out. We understand this is a huge issue, then, I try my best to facilitate that resource. Is there any other questions? Don't be afraid. I mean, I have people come and say, I'm not sure if I want to ask you that.
We'll go left to right, so Paige and Ariana, and then
Lane, I don't want to get too personal, but looking back now at where you are now, do you know like a time point when you said, hey, I realized like that my sex is like a man? Like, was there a time or was it a gradual like in 2014?
Well, people ask, how far back do you feel like you were just kind of not, in the right place,
Yeah.
I say 5 years old.
Okay.
Because the story is that my cousin, who was male, we were at a cabin on the lake. He went running out with his shorts on. I wanted to do the same thing, right? Because I was peeling my shirt off and ready to go, 5 years old. And my mom said, no, come here. You gotta put on a little suit. So I did. And what's funny is my mom and I, bless her heart, she's very supportive. Do we have the same political and understanding of biblical understanding? No. Do we respect each other? Yes. She knows that I'm God's child, and I know that she's God's child. Her path is her own. But it's we went through a bunch of pictures, and when I was in my jeans, my t-shirt or whatever, I had grins. But when we had to put the dresses my mother made me, my sister wore the same kind, because we were 18 months apart, I'm like this. Every single picture, and I got that gun hanging out, so, but it was always there, and that's what I try to tell folks to come to me and start talking about this, because I'm trying to get them to understand you were born transgender. If you are telling me that you identify as something opposite of your sex, that is defined as transgender, okay? The non-gender conforming, which a lot of people ask me about, and I'm not an expert on it, but I think people get confused about the orientation and the identity. That's where that comes in. And if we could just separate those two and then take gender, like Matt and the instructor said, just leave gender out of the equation of who you're working with or your family. They're a human being. See that first. And I've said that in lectures over at the medical college, that when you walk in that room, first see a human being, you probably already have a probable of why they're there, but then make them comfortable to understand that they can open up and be easy to talk to you and explain these things that they're struggling with. And two, the scenario of, because the university is wanting us to have a better connection as far as all disciplines of area, as far as medicine, and have people come and be part of lectures and answer questions. But if I walked in with another male, and then you walk in the door and you're ready to treat the patient, my first question would be, what do you see? Is it a couple? Is it a father and son? Is it a friend? Because here's what I noticed, and this is no disrespect, but older generations that are used to, let's just analyze this, solve the problem, move on. That I walked in there with a partner and they were kind of dismissed. Understand, my wife is going with me to every single doctor's appointment for a reason. That second party there is there for a reason. Do not dismiss them, ever. They're part of the equation of that person actually walking in your door. It's important. Make sense? Next question.
So you seem pretty religiously oriented. Did you have experienced any like backlash from the church or?
Well, like I said, I was raised Southern Baptist. Growing up, I was a music minister's daughter. I haven't had a relationship with my real dad since I was 16, of his choosing. I don't carry that anymore. But like I said, you're going to find a lot of people that deal with abandonment issues and rejection, and it affects how they move forward in life, logically. So, as far as the church going, my mom is still an active member of, she says denomination, I say religion. But I'm thankful, if I can say that simply. I'm thankful that I had the upbringing that I did to establish that relationship, because I'm not walking this path. And everybody, I'm a veteran too. I believe everybody can believe as they choose to believe. It's a free country. You know, land of the free, home of the brave. Believe as you choose to believe, because you are uniquely made. It's open. The world and the universe is your destiny. Believe as you choose to believe, and empower people with that energy that you live. Mine is, I'm a person of faith. I don't say I'm part of a religion. I'm just simply a child of God walking the path that He desired. It's that simple.
Question.
Yeah.
So you said that transgender males more have this gray area with their transitions. I've been trying to figure out how to say this. Do you feel it's like because transgender males and females, they all experience that stigma, but do you think transgender females have more societal repercussions?
Yes, just like gay males do, because they're showing a more feminine side, which, you know, is very difficult to overcome, primarily, you know, in the South. And, you know, it seems to me, and I've heard this from those that are transitioning to female, that, you know, they start transitioning and their more feminine traits come out. They've always been there.
Right.
Okay? They've always been there. There's a difference in being, and I explained this to somebody that needed education the other night. I asked her, how did she identify? She said female. So she's transgender female. Then I asked her friend that was with her, I said, how do you identify? He said, male. I said, you're a gay male? He said, yes. And I was trying to get her to distinguish the difference, because identity and orientation are two different things. And that's where we really muddy the waters as far as understanding what is transgender, because we're trying to categorize, you know, T is a reason for a reason, G is a reason for a reason, B, L, those are completely separate things. And even, I can agree, even within those letters, there's a whole diverse, long list.
Heterogeneous.
Yes, yes. I mean, when I brought some paperwork with me one time, I think the paperwork itself was like almost 12 pages of definitions. Just that I do now, you know, of how diverse we are. And I'm sure it's gonna continue to grow. The words are gonna change. Simple things that I would encourage you in is pronoun. People always ask me about that. Understand, and a friend of mine was good at explaining this to me, because we went on a camping trip and they were stumbling on a he and she. It was early on onset of starting my transition. And she finally just said, look, work with me, I'm transitioning too. And it's so true, because your coworkers have to adapt, your family has to adapt, you know, anybody that you run in contact with, people that have known you in your life and community that have known you forever have to adapt. You know, the people that struggle the longest and take the longest are those that are the longest invested in you. And it's primarily the family, because they've been there since day one.
I have to ask, I'm also a veteran, so I thank you for your service.
Absolutely.
And what you continue to do, thank you. All right, so basic training in the IT. I don't know about you, but we had to take showers, Army. We had to take showers with a whole bunch of other women. And there were a couple that already identified as being lesbian.
Okay.
So no, they had more uncomfortability in the communal shower. Did you experience any of that?
At that time, believe it or not, I came out as a lesbian when I was in boot camp.
Okay.
Because I got out of this environment here, and then I was living in Jacksonville for a little while, where my other Southern Baptist family is. So when I completely got out of the environment, and I always knew that I was attracted to females, that's my orientation, obviously. That, you know, I had 5 5 different lesbians wanting to get to know me. I was like, this is why I feel this way. So, yeah, I went with it. But, anyway, I don't know, it's like, honestly, I love boot camp because I'm a driven person and I like to be pushed. Sometimes when you push, I'm gonna push back, but that was a very disciplined environment. And it just, was empowering and energizing, and I could run 3 miles a day. I don't do that today, obviously, but.
I don't think you do that in the Navy.
I'll send you a video. I was 150 pounds.
That probably accepts all people.
Yes, we got cycled. Yes, we did push it. Yes, we had PT. Yes, a friend of mine spit on the grinder and we had to do 50 push-ups. Everybody. So, I mean,